After I was raped and killed, my mother started selling meat buns. Her buns have large fillings and thin skins, and are extremely delicious. The police suspect that the missing hooligans are inside. My mother laughed after hearing this and said, "How could that be? Our family never sells overnight meat." Someone found half a finger from buns in our shop. The diners in the store immediately fell into chaos. The police quickly arrived and sealed off the scene. On my mother's chopping board, they found half a thigh meat that hadn't been chopped in time. The meat is fresh. You can check it casually. I never use overnight meat or machine ground meat. Not springy and lacking chewiness. When the police fished out a row of skeletons with skin and meat from the dark and fragrant brine pot, she wasn't afraid at all. Instead, she slowly and softly revealed her never-disclosed secret recipe. "Look. The meat still needs to be marinated to be fragrant enough. One bite will give a bursting juice sensation. My brine ingredients." The police couldn't stand it and interrupted her harshly. "Genevieve, tell me, why did you kill? What about your daughter Grace Lynn? She hasn't been to school for more than 10 days. She is about to take the college entrance examination. What have you done to her?" "College entrance examination? Girls reading books is useless." My mother let out a contemptuous laugh. "She doesn't need these anymore." A sense of helpless suffocation filled my heart. My mother always despised me because of my gender. My efforts never received her recognition. Strangely, people are already dead. Why am I still in so much pain? When the police were confused and opened the refrigerator following my mother's gaze, instantly everyone covered their noses and showed extremely horrified expressions. Because inside the refrigerator, there was me. Disintegrated me. I was attacked on my way home. The hooligans covered my mouth and nose with a handkerchief soaked in anesthetic and dragged me into an abandoned factory. The huge pain made me wake up quickly. My screams and struggles only brought more crazy insults from the men. After losing consciousness, they were still tirelessly venting on my body. After a while, someone suddenly gasped, "Brother, this girl seems to have no breath." "No way. So fragile? Pretending. Right? Wasn't she still making lewd noises just now?" After checking her breath, it was true that there was no breath. The others also began to panic. "Boss, we are paid to do things, but we don't include killing people. Brothers have just been released. We can't go back to prison again." The leading strong man forcefully grabbed my neck and repeatedly slapped me. Due to excessive force, my neck snapped to one side. Completely broken. My soul trembled and shrank into a ball. I was even glad that I was completely dead. Otherwise, how much suffering would I have to endure? When the man put on his pants in disgust and smoked an entire cigarette, he said, "Forget it. It's better if she's dead. When a person dies, the price we ask for will be different. That kid named Callan is rich anyway." When I floated back to the bun shop in a daze, my mother was playing Machorn with neighbors. "Genevieve, your Grace Lynn has good grades. She will definitely be able to go to a university in Beijing, right?" My mother scoffed contemptuously. "Am I so stupid? If she goes out of town, can she still come back? I have raised her for so many years. How can I let her run away?" "You can't say that. Your daughter has good grades, and will have a better future if she goes out. This is nothing. In the future, she will still be a clerk earning a few thousand yuan." My mother's tone became increasingly cold. "Girls are just good at rote learning. If my son were still alive, he would be 100 or 1,000 times better than her." Yes. My mother was once pregnant with a baby boy. When she was 5 months pregnant, she caught pneumonia due to my cold. The child didn't survive. Coincidentally, my father's mistress gave birth to a boy. After the divorce, my mother hated me to death. If it weren't for you, this family wouldn't have fallen apart. Tell me, did you deliberately get sick because you didn't want a younger brother? As night fell, while she was tittying up the Machorn game, she was muttering curses. "Evening self-study is over. Where did you go to have fun?" She didn't know that her daughter was being dismembered. I watched as she impatiently started dialing my number. Once. Twice. Countless times. In the phone. It was always, "Sorry. The user you dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later." She started pacing back and forth at home impatiently and kept calling my head teacher and classmates. If this stinky girl dares to mess around outside. See if I don't break her dog legs. My mother confessed to the murder. As for how many, I can't remember. You can check it yourself. Don't you have DNA testing? Yes, there is. But just that pot of brine juice makes the forensic doctor bald. In that pot of aged brine, there are countless seasonings precipitated. Star anise, tangerine peel, rock sugar, fennel, cardamom. Even the meat for seasoning is divided into lean meat and streaky pork. I watched as my mother's hands were cuffed. When she was being escorted into the police car, a charming woman rushed out. She punched and kicked my mother, and cried heartbreakably, "Where's my son, Genevieve? Give me back my son. This is my father's second wife." People were discussing. I heard that her ex-husband's son has also been missing for several days. Could it be that she did it too? This woman is so vicious. No wonder her husband dumped her. Genevieve, if you dared to touch a hair on my son, I will never finish with you. My father was frantic. My mother, with a bruised face, smiled. "Look, you also have today." After I disappeared, my mother had to call my father and ask him to find someone. But all she got was, "Your daughter. Don't you know where she went? Don't bother me." Facing the two people who were extremely anxious, my mother blinked. "I really don't know where Callan is. I sell so many baskets every day. My mother's business is good. There are always an endless stream of diners every day. In the small store, inside and outside are always full." She slightly raised the corner of her mouth. "If you want to ask, you should ask the diners here." Suddenly, the whole place was silent. Even the police who were pulling the woman forgot their actions. Avo and my father lost color on their faces and helplessly slumped to the ground. I really like seeing them in a state of collapse. I begged my mother like a dog. I remember when I begged her not to break up my family. The woman kicked me over. "Fool! Get out with your mother." Avo was once my mother's best friend. This is a cliché story. My mother spent her youth accompanying my father to start from scratch. After getting rich, she was betrayed by both of them. She stubbornly believes that Ava was able to take over because she had a son, so she blamed the divorce on me. I don't know how my mother finally found the warehouse. After seeing my mutilated corpse, she froze there. From breathing, expression, to heartbeat, everything stopped. She picked up my scattered body. After a long time, she gently closed my eyes that were still open in death. From beginning to end, her face was empty. There was no sadness. Not even a sob. I laughed at myself. Every time my mother mentioned her son, it wasn't like this. Perhaps without the burden, her future will be easier. She can form a new family and have her favorite children again. It must be very easy. Right? My mother didn't call the police. Instead, she took my body back to the shop and wrapped it up very carefully. After dawn, she called my head teacher to ask for leave. "My Grace Lynn is sick. Please give her a few days off." Yes. It definitely won't affect her studies. It's not me who is sick. It's my mother. She prepared breakfast and lunch as usual and knocked on the door loudly. "Girl, the meal is in the refrigerator. Remember to heat it thoroughly before eating. Mom is going out to do some errands. The money is on the table. When you are sick, you should eat more. You are as thin as a bamboo pole." She went out for 6 whole days. On the night of my first 7 days, in front of my spiritual tablet, my mother used the life of a hooligan to pay tribute to me. Before my mother took action, she bought a second and take-out uniform. After running the shop for so many years, She knows many people from all walks of life. Soon, she got the information of the hooligans from the local bully. She rode a small electric bike and wandered back and forth in the community. Years of hard work made her back a little hunched. Such an image wouldn't attract attention. My mother successfully locked onto the address and knocked on the door while carrying takeout. The door opened. The yellow-haired hooligan took it warily and said, "What are you looking at? Why don't you leave?" My heart skipped a beat. This was the person who attacked me from the grass. My mother looked at the yellow-haired hooligan with a fierce face and a fierce look. She smiled humbly. "Young man, if it's convenient, can you give me a 5-star rating? Get lost. If you don't leave, I'll beat you up." The door closed. My mother's expression instantly changed. The cowardly smile was replaced by cold hatred. She didn't go downstairs but waited in a corner of the rooftop and kept waiting until night. When she pried open the door and entered, the yellow-haired hooligan had already foamed at the mouth and lost consciousness and fainted on the ground. Yes, a large amount of anesthetic had been put in the box lunch. I didn't dare to breathe the whole time. I watched as my mother dragged the yellow-haired hooligan into the prepared trolley. There was a surveillance camera at the exit on the first floor. My mother took out the prepared steel wire without haste. She hooked out the camera and pulled it hard. After changing the direction, she lowered her helmet and disappeared into the night. The yellow-haired hooligan woke up from the pain. He was horrified to find that his whole body was tied up. No matter how hard he struggled, he could only make a woo-woo-woo sound. My mother ignored him and was grinding the boning knife by herself. "It was you who bullied my daughter." The yellow-haired hooligan begged for mercy with tears in his voice. Completely different from his arrogant appearance just now. He said it had nothing to do with him. "I was just an assistant. Someone paid us to do it. A girl's innocence is the most important." On my mother's face full of wrinkles, there were a pair of numb eyes deeply embedded. "You bullied Grace Lynn. How can she get married and be a person in the future?" She picked up the boning knife and compared it on the yellow-haired hooligan's body. Finally, she found the best place to start. My grandfather was a butcher. My mother was influenced by him and was very skilled. Just as she told the police. She never used a meat grinder. She likes to chop by hand. Then, I saw her raise the knife high and chop down resolutely. The yellow-haired hooligan immediately fainted. Blood was flowing everywhere. After my mother woke him up with ice water. After drying her hands, she took out a storage folder. I took a closer look and found that there were the certificates of merit I had obtained since I was a child. When I was a child, I happily took the certificate of merit and went home. My mother would only severely scold me. "It's just a small competition in school. What's there to be proud of? Don't be proud. You are good at memorizing now. But it doesn't mean you can do well in high school. Boys will easily surpass you after they develop." I always wanted to gain my mother's recognition, although it was very difficult. But I thought that as long as I worked hard and tried harder, one day I could achieve it. My mother's trembling fingers stroked my name on the certificate of merit. "My daughter has been a little pacesetter and class gadry since kindergarten and has been a 3 good student every year." It turns out that my mother remembers my honors. Her voice was very gentle. "Grace Lynn is helpful and has good grades. Teachers and classmates all like her. Others say they envy me. I also feel lucky. I often think that I must have done good deeds in my previous life. This girl doesn't look like me. She is delicate and beautiful. Her personality is not as frivolous as her father's. We are bad bambos but have produced good shoots." My mother suddenly grabbed the hooligan's neck. Her eyes bloodshot. "Why? Why be so cruel to her? She has no grudge against you. Why? Mom, don't kill." I tried to stop her, but there was no way. The ethereal soul could only pass through her body again and again. My mother wrapped the yellow-haired hooligan's neck with a rope round and began to tighten it. The yellow-haired hooligan's face kept turning purple. His eyeballs protruded, and his tongue turned purple. "Auntie, I was wrong. Give me a chance to correct my mistakes. My mother is still waiting for me in my hometown. She is sick. I just want to earn some money to treat her illness. You also have a mother? The rope loosened for a moment. Thinking that begging for mercy was promising, the yellow-haired hooligan became more pitiful and tried to appeal to her emotions. With a runny nose and tears, he made a miserable plea. I do. My mother is about the same age as you. Auntie. Please spare me and give me a chance. Chance? Then did you give my daughter? Did you give Gracelyn a chance? There was a strange smile on my mother's ferocious face. She said very kindly, that's great. Your mother will soon be as painful as me. Splashing blood sprayed on my photo. In the photo, I rolled up my sleeves and seriously kneaded the dough. There was flour on my nose. Indescribably funny. My mother is frugal and reluctant to buy a good mobile phone. Even the secretly taken photos are blurry. She carefully wiped the blood on my face and her tears on it. Then she cleaned up the scene and started making dough and chopping meat to open the morning market as if nothing had happened. In the meantime, a housing agent came. Genevieve. You asked me to help you find a stall in Beijing before. There is progress. It turns out that my mother plans to sell the old store and go to Beijing with me. Last time you said whether Gracelyn wanted to take the exam for Beijing University or Beijing Foreign Studies University. I asked my colleague. The information is here. It's just that the rent and deposit are high. Genevieve. Are you really going? How can I not go? My mother kneaded the dough expressionlessly and wrapped the filling neatly. She is a girl. She is unfamiliar with the place. She can't be without someone watching. Oh. When a daughter grows up, you should enjoy a happy life. I can't enjoy it. In case I need to buy a house in Beijing in the future. It's not a good thing to be adrift. There must be a down payment. Otherwise, people will look down on you when you talk about a relationship. Just like me back then. While I can still work, I should save more. That's right. With Genevieve's unique skill, it will be popular everywhere. It turns out that when my mother said, "How can I let her run away?" she meant to follow me. She is vulgar and paranoid. She hasn't read many books and grew up struggling in the marketplace. She doesn't understand at all what it means to hurt people with harsh words. She thinks that the more money in the bank book, the more love there will be. My nose is sour. I lean my head on my mother's shoulder. In our lifetime, we have never been so close. We are even more ashamed to say love. But now it's too late. But just by leaning like this, my whole soul seems to be frozen. To save money and time, my family rented on the second floor of the store. At this moment, the closet behind my mother quietly opened a crack. There is a man hidden inside. My mind went blank. All the terrifying memories before death came flooding back like a tide. This man is the man who broke my neck. The man is known as John in the underworld. With a mafia background, he has blood on his hands and is fierce and fearless. The man's gaze was like the tongue of a poisonous snake, firmly locked on my mother, looking at the sharp blade in his hand ready to strike. I was extremely anxious. Mom, run! Hurry up! In the dim light, my mother was mopping the floor without noticing. At the moment when she approached the closet, John rushed out with a knife. My mother staggered and fell backward. She tried to close the bedroom door with her hands and feet. But John wouldn't give her such a chance. Just as she closed it halfway, his strong body suddenly bumped into it. My mother didn't have as much strength as him. And the door was pushed back. She fell heavily backward. John pressed on her and held the blade against her neck. I knew it was you who was causing trouble. Tell me, where is my brother? If you don't tell me, I'll kill you. As his subordinates disappeared one after another, he couldn't sit still. But he didn't believe at all that an ant selling buns could have any ability. Let alone that my mother could kill people. He is a beast and doesn't understand at all the determination of being a parent. My mother's gaze was like dissecting the other person inch by inch. The yellow-haired guy said that it was you. They were your helpers. Yes. John recalled with pride and let out a lingering smile. I was also your daughter's first man. Oh, and the last. My mother was shaking so badly that I rarely saw her so helpless. Since childhood, no matter what bad things happened, she would charge forward like a lioness. But John was still tirelessly humiliating her. So tender. The girl's skin is white and smooth. But it's not durable. But even a few brothers can't stand it. When she was in pain, she would call for Mom. You said, "Should I call you mother-in-law?" In the middle of laughing, John suddenly found that his voice was hoarse. But this was just the beginning. In an instant, John's body twitched violently and collapsed like having an epileptic seizure. He was horrified. Blood flowed from his eyes, nose, and even ears. Only then did I notice that my mother was holding a syringe that was half injected. Inside was highly toxic cyanide. My mother knew early on that John would come for revenge. Knowing that there was a gap in strength, she installed surveillance cameras inside and outside the shop and prepared enough medicine in advance. John wasn't fat, but he was tall and full of muscles. My mother spent a lot of effort to drag him to the kitchen on the first floor. She skillfully cut open his artery with a knife. As soon as she pulled it out, blood immediately spurted high. John's body twitched violently. With each twitch, the blood sprayed even higher. In just 1 minute, he spread his limbs and fell backward and died. The first yellow-haired guy once said, "It was Callan who found me and said he wanted to teach a woman a lesson." They also took a video and said they would make the woman unable to hold her head up for the rest of her life. The evidence is in our boss's mobile phone. Callan, my half-brother, a precious brother who grew up surrounded by love and money, and is doted on by everyone. My mother found a video in John's mobile phone. At this moment, my soul became very cold. I begged my mother, "Don't watch it. Okay? Don't turn it on. Don't click it." My mother's chest heaved painfully. But she still chose to click the play button. The unbearable was enough to destroy any mother. Callan held the camera and pointed it at my face with a giggle. Not missing all my despair. "Grace Lynn, aren't you very proud at school? Keep being proud." Pain came from all directions. I felt blood gushing out from all over my body. The blood flowed back into my throat. I couldn't even scream. But until death, there was stubbornness in my eyes. I refused to bow to this unfounded malice. I have never done anything bad in my life and never harmed a single person. Why did this to me? Callan stepped on my face with his foot. He said he had always hated my eyes the most since childhood because there was ambition in them. Do you think that just because you are good at studying, you can gain a sense of existence in front of my dad through grades? Then I'll see. No matter how good your grades are, in the future, you can only be a whore. If it weren't for you, my mom wouldn't force me to go to tutoring. It's so annoying. In the future, the family's business and houses are all mine. Don't think that just because you can get 100 points, you can get anything. In fact, my dad doesn't care about me at all. He just likes to use my grades to spur his son. They don't understand that grades are the only means I can use to fight against the world, and the weapon that can make my mother smile and erase her humiliation. I have no choice but to work hard, be excellent, and be number one. To suppress my only pride. Callan caused me a lot of trouble at school. He formed cliques to exclude me, locked me in the men's toilet, splashed dirty water and tore my clothes. He even had someone accuse me of theft and put my face on a pornographic girlfriend's face. After that, I couldn't bear it anymore and reported it to the head teacher. A clean person is clean. If you haven't done it, what are you afraid of others saying about you? Besides, Callan doesn't bully others. Why only bully you? A teacher is skilled at taking sides. You are Callan's sister anyway. Can't you solve it privately? Why do you have to make a fuss and go to the teacher? Grace Lynn, are you a bit selfish? My dad's business has been very big these years. He is rich and powerful and has taken care of everything. The teacher's protection made Callan more and more aggressive. The excitement soon passed. In the end, Callan got tired of filming. Plus, his family urged him to go back and have a midnight snack. So he threw the camera back to John. "Work hard. I'll pay you the balance later." Seeing this, my mother finally couldn't bear it anymore and knelt on the ground. The string that had been holding her tight broke. She wailed silently and let out a beast-like cry. She started slapping herself frantically. It wasn't until her 5 fingers were covered in blood that she seemed to wake up from a nightmare. "Callan, now it's your turn. This is all my crime process." In the police station, my mother confessed without any need for coercion. She was eager to share with everyone in detail the joy of avenging her daughter. The murder case at the bun shop exploded on the internet. Public opinion fermented quickly and people were excited. They demanded justice for this pure mother and daughter. In just a few days, my dad's business plummeted. Even his villa was smashed. What an excellent girl. She was in the top 50 in the mock exams in the province. What a pity. Her dad is the boss of Dutch and Catering Group. He is a major taxpayer in the district. For many years, he has ignored his ex-wife and daughter. His son is a treasure and his daughter is grass. This is really extreme. The hatred of the younger generation must be influenced by the adults. It can be seen what kind of attitude the second wife usually has towards the ex-wife's family. My mother still refused to tell where Callan was. What was chopped on the chopping board was not human flesh but mutton. Didn't it say that it was killed in the kitchen? But we couldn't extract any traces of blood at all. Logically speaking, with such a large amount of bleeding, it is impossible to have no residue. Some policemen also guessed, could it be that all this is her imagination? She imagines taking revenge for her daughter. However, those hooligans did disappear. The only thing that hasn't been resolved yet is that pot of brine dregs. 3 more days. My dad is so eager to find his son. How can he wait? He slapped the table and roared. Then interrogate her. Beat her and torture her. Give her truth serum. My son can't wait that long. We don't need you to teach us how to handle cases. The policeman was both angry and amused. He put on a serious face. Gunner, you said your son has been missing for 3 days? I saw a flash of evasion in my dad's eyes. Yes. Right. You're lying. The last place where Callan's signal disappeared was at the vacation house. That's your property. At 2:30 in the middle of the night on your daughter Gracelyn was killed. Your family driver sent him there. Now we have controlled the driver. You knew your daughter was dead that night. As a father, when your daughter was killed, you didn't go to the police but chose to hide it. You are not worthy of being parents at all. Gunner, you are also suspected of harboring and shielding suspects. Wait to be sued. When my mother left the interrogation room, Ava gave her a hard push. My mother staggered. She glanced infuriately at the woman who had fallen into madness. Your daughter deserved to die. What kind of saint are you pretending to be now? Do you really love Gracelyn? Don't think I don't know. You usually yell at her, and never say a good word. Now you're pretending to be a good mother. She was bullied at school. Can you, as a mother, not know? This matter is not my mother's fault. It was the head teacher who complained first and talked to my mother. Gracelyn's mother. Your daughter is in a bad mood and is very likely to have puppy love. As parents, you still need to pay attention. My mother was trembling with fear, and took the teacher's words as imperial edicts, believing whatever was said. Many girls at this age are love-struck and get pregnant and so on. Of course. It's not that Gracelyn will be like this. But it's always right to be careful. My mother believed it. She peeked at my messages with male classmates. Just based on a cute emoji, she concluded that we were in puppy love. This kind of emoji is popular now, and doesn't mean anything. He is just thanking me for the materials. No matter how I explained, my mother just wouldn't believe me and confiscated my mobile phone. It's almost the college entrance examination. How can you still have the mind to talk about love? My mother angrily poked my head. You are different from Callan. No one backs you up. Your mother originally wanted to give you a good future. You have to rely on yourself for everything. That night, I found someone following me and wanted to use my mobile phone to call the police and contact my mother. But when I touched it, my heart turned cold. The mobile phone was not by my side at all. I don't believe my daughter but believe outsiders. I am guilty. You are right. I am also a murderer. Let me tell you a secret. Ava's face was completely distorted. Back then when you had a miscarriage, it was old Callan. He was so eager to divorce you that even if he gave up this son, so he secretly replaced your miscarriage prevention medicine. Your son's miscarriage had nothing to do with your daughter. But you wrongly blamed her for so many years. Do you regret it? Facing Ava's insults, my mother didn't deny it. A layer of turbid tears floated in her old eyes. Don't worry. We will also be punished. At this time, the policeman came over and said something. Ava's face suddenly changed because the test results came out. That finger in the bun. It's Callan's. Ava knelt in front of my mother, said all the good things and cried into a tearful person. My dad also came forward. He tried to appeal to her emotions. Ewan, I know these years have been tough on you and your daughter. I am also very heartbroken about Gracelyn's accident. But it was an accident. You can't blame it all on Xiao Zhen. He is still young. The younger the better. He can spend more time in prison. My dad was handsome when he was young, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to coax my mother into giving him her whole heart. A glimmer of light flashed in my mother's scattered eyes. Gunnar, do you want to know Callan's whereabouts? Fine. Let's play a game. She asked for a mobile phone and opened a monitoring software. To everyone's astonishment, an iron cage appeared in the monitoring. And Callan, naked, was trapped in the narrow cage. The iron cage seemed to be stuck in the sewer. There was no light around. Sewage kept pouring in. Callan was covered in wounds. His body, which hadn't eaten for a long time, was extremely weak. When Ava saw this scene, she was so distressed that she almost fainted. Callan has been living in luxury since childhood. He laughed at me as a mouse in the vegetable market. Now, feces and urine are all over him. It's extremely stinky. Callan's shoulders trembled, and he helplessly sobbed. Mom, where are you? Come and save me. Genevieve, what on earth do you want? My dad couldn't control his anger anymore. Gracelyn is already dead. What do you want? I know you have a private account in Hong Kong. You don't trust Eva. So you have been making false accounts and moving away profits that are not needed for business operations. My mother showed a mocking smile. Now, transfer all this money to the account I designate and donate it to charity. All? My dad was furious. His whole face flushed red. Genevieve, even in this situation, you still think about money. Oh, I understand. You are blackmailing me with Gracelyn's death. Right. Yes. You hold a grudge against me for making you leave the house with nothing. Back then, it was clearly you who were willing to give up property in exchange for Gracelyn's guardianship. It was your own choice. Yes. It was my choice. My mother smiled without real joy. Now, it's your turn. Gunnar. Since you love your son so much, then use all your property to exchange for your son. My dad refused. As expected, Eva begged him to agree quickly. Seeing that the water was getting higher and higher and worms were crawling all over Callan's wounds, there was a risk of infection if he wasn't treated soon. Without food, he was relying on drinking sewage and couldn't hold on anymore. Old Callan, we can earn money again. But there is only one son. My dad wasn't swayed. He firmly adhered to his principles with righteousness. Genevieve is just bluffing us. Even if we give it to her, it will be in vain. I'm not reluctant to give up this little money. But we can't bow to evil forces. We must trust the comrades of the police. It won't be in time. It will be in time. As long as there is water to drink, a person can survive for 2 or 3 weeks even without eating. My dad was unwavering. Sen's N is strong. He will definitely be able to wait. Ada's face was as pale as death. She was in a trance. As if only now did she recognize the true face of her husband beside her. A son is indeed important. But he is not an irreplaceable resource. My dad also has more than one mistress outside. As long as there is enough money, there will be endless sons and grandsons. The detention center at night is very cold. Mother clumsily curls up on the bed. At a glance, I knew it must be her back acting up again. And she didn't wear a back brace again. Others close their stalls after the morning and afternoon markets. But she insists on working through the evening market as well. Even if one is made of iron, one can't stand it. Especially in winter, when her back hurts. It's difficult for her to even walk. I felt sorry for her and advised her to work less. But my mother is number one in being stubborn. Work less? Then who will support you in the future? Tuition fees are so expensive now. As I got closer, I heard my mother murmuring softly, "Grace Lynn, Mom has found a shop in Beijing. After you start school, we will move there. You study and Mom makes money. Mom has been practicing Mandarin recently. Listen and see if it's accurate." Looking at the tears on my mother's cheeks, I finally remembered how she found my body. That night she called the police. But the police said they could only act after 48 hours of disappearance. My mother could only lower herself and beg my dad. He has wide connections and knows many people in the bureau. He must be able to help. But as soon as she arrived at the villa, she saw the couple carrying big and small bags and secretly stuffing Callan into the car like thieves. Gunnar kept reminding, "Wait until the storm passes before contacting. Don't go home first. Wait until Mom and Dad handle it." After receiving John's call, Callan was extremely panicked. His voice sobbed. He defended himself. I just wanted to teach him a lesson. Who knew it would involve Grace Lynn? "Dad, I don't want to go to prison." My mother vaguely heard my name and became suspicious. So she followed my dad's car all the way to the warehouse. When seeing my body, my dad's first reaction was to vomit. He vomited in disgust. Ava panicked and shook my dad. "No. We mustn't let her affects enter. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you always using this girl's grades to stimulate our son, would our son be like this? We have harmed our son." The two left in a hurry. They didn't notice the van following behind. The next day, my mother heard the news in the detention center. It was said that Ava accidentally stabbed my dad in an emotional outburst during an argument. One of his kidneys was necrotic and he was sent to the hospital. After the money was transferred to the designated account as promised, my mother was very satisfied and said that only women understand women. Since this is the case, let me give you a gift. The lock of the cage where Callan was held opened. He burst into tears of joy and crawled out of the cage mouth with his hands and feet. But outside, waiting for him was an even bigger iron cage. Inside, there were not only the yellow-haired guy, the head teacher, but also all the people who committed the crime that night. John's incomplete body lay in the corner. I suddenly understood why the police didn't find any bloodstains in the kitchen. My mother didn't kill them. Instead, she trapped them here like raising poisonous insects. She didn't give them food or drink, and let them fight each other. Everyone should be familiar with what people will do when they are hungry. Right? What are you doing? What are you doing? Callan backed away in despair and tried to stop them. "Don't come near me. Get out. Get away from me." In a critical moment, the technical department brought good news. They analyzed the video repeatedly and didn't miss any details. They found clues through the audio track in the video. Look. There is a light source on Callan's face. It will shake regularly at specific times. This should be the vibration caused by the passing of a train. Immediately search the warehouses near the intersection of the underground sewer and the railway. By using the passing time, we can further calculate the length of the train. Contact the Railway Bureau and call out the train lines that meet the conditions for comparison and search. Soon, the results came out. It was an abandoned pig farm. My grandfather had worked there before. It was also the place my mother was most familiar with when she was a child. The rescue officially began. Before setting off, Ava swept away her dejected and embarrassed look and sarcastically said without restraint, "Genevieve. Justice will prevail over evil. Just wait to die. It's only a 40-minute drive at high speed from the police station." My mother was wearing handcuffs. Beside her were policemen with real guns and live ammunition. She had nowhere to escape. But she wasn't in a hurry at all. In the car, she leaned against the window and stared longingly at the blue sky and white clouds outside. "Today, the weather is really nice." The brilliant sunlight fell on her face through the glass. She murmured to herself. Gracelyn said she wanted to go to Disneyland after the college entrance examination. What did I reply to her? I said that at such an age. Still thinking about playing. Doesn't college cost money? Doesn't changing mobile phones and computers cost money? Which one isn't better than going to Disneyland? A wave of sadness welled up in my heart. "It's okay, Mom. I just want to go with you. It doesn't matter where we go as long as we are together." My daughter never got to go anywhere even until her death. Do you know? As my daughter grows older, I actually feel more and more uncertain. I am uneducated. I can't even tutor her with second or third grade questions. I am very afraid of being looked down upon by my daughter. So I just yell at her and be fierce to her. It seems that by talking about the hardships I have endured a few more times, my daughter will listen to me a bit more. Gracelyn said that I am a typical East Asian mom who finds a sense of existence by being picky. I didn't understand before. But now I know. Yes. That's me. I don't know how to be a good mother. Ava laughed gleefully and said, "Yes. Your daughter is unlucky to have a mother like you. All day long, you only know how to make buns. You are in such a situation today because you are short-sighted. My son will be safe and sound. But you, hold your daughter's ashes and rot in prison." I was so angry that I trembled all over. But my mother wasn't angry at all. There was still a faint smile on the corner of her mouth. "Yes, you are so happy. I really envy you." At this moment, the policeman sitting in the passenger seat and constantly staring at the monitor suddenly realized something. He told everyone to be quiet and turned up the volume to the maximum. In the earphones, the sound of wind and rain could be vaguely heard. The raindrops were pattering clearly. But at this moment, outside the window, the sun is shining brightly, and there are no clouds in the sky. What does this mean? It means that the video is a recording. The last heavy rain in City G was 3 days ago. The sound of rain still fell on everyone's heart. The carriage fell into extreme silence. It turns out that true despair is making people think that hope is right in front of them, within close reach, and within easy reach. But it completely turns into nothing. Ava finally understood what my mother meant by saying, "The weather is so nice." A terrifying, inhuman sound squeezed out from her damaged throat. But it was useless. This is a video from 3 days ago. My mother, bathing in the sunlight, happily narrowed her eyes and said, "Ava, your son likes to use money to make lackeys do things. Now, these dogs have been hungry for a long time. Guess, will dogs eat their master?" The answer will be revealed soon.